Thank you much. I really appreciate it. Yes, archery has been my life, and it's my later life. And I was married to a woman for 72 and a half years, and she put up with me. And she says she decided early on that whatever Jim wanted to do, he could do it. And that was, so it allowed me some extra time. I have 3 daughters that put up with it too, so it's pretty nice. But anyway, let's get started with this thing right off the bat and so forth. And I did go to work and bring something here that's very, very dear to me, and to start it off because, oh.
Can I do this real quick?
Yes, I'm sorry.
Sorry guys, I got a little technical thing.
My mind's a little short here at times.
Jim Ploen, Mark 1. That didn't go very loud. Get it? Good. Alright, all you, Jim.
Okay, thank you. Got it. Anyway, I brought my little toy along here because the first session is going to be how the bow works and so forth. So you get some idea of what goes into manufacturing, what goes into the design and so forth of a bow. So I brought this one. So I'm very, very cautious with this one here because it's one that I designed and made myself. And so I'm trying to be very cautious with it because it's means a lot to me and so forth. So let's get the string on here. And of course I'm very, very conscious of using bow stringers and all that sort of stuff for stringing bows. I think of the importance of it so you don't harm yourself or the bow. And but in this case here I'm a little bit in a hurry. So I'd like to go to work and have you close one eye so you don't see what I'm doing, but keep the other eye open so you know how not to do it. Okay, so I want to get this thing strong, and I'm so delicate. So this is one technique that I've learned about stringing a bow that really works out very, very well. I have no problems with it. It's quite good. Don't ever do that at home. So that's how you string. Oh, by the way, sometimes I like to use a left-handed bow. Well, a left-handed bow, okay, let's turn it around and get a left-handed bow out of it too. So, but it's a little lighter that way too, in case it's too heavy this way. You know, so that's, yeah. All right, that's done good enough. Now I got your attention, I hope. All right, how does these things work? Well, of course, they have a riser section. The riser section means it includes the handle, it includes the window, the shelf, and it extends out into the limb, tapers in there very, very finely, and that's a very, very important point, is how well this tapers into this portion right here. And that portion is ground so thin it's like a feather. You can see through it almost on the end. Otherwise, that would become a hinge point and where they break. So that's why that's so important on a bow. Also, the length of it, of course, is how far it extends out into the limb. Most of the long bows, they try to keep them down here short. Well, what do then? You have a long working limb. Now, what we have when we store our energy, by the fact that when we draw it, we're storing energy. That's called, now when I stop, it's potential energy. It's the amount of energy that's going to do work for us. Energy is never, never lost. It only takes on different terms and different names. When we move it down, it becomes kinetic energy. The amount of vibration that's in the limb and so forth that you feel in your hand is hand shock. That is because you've got so much working material, and all that working that goes in does not go to the arrow. It stays with the bow. So that's lost efficiency. So that's why we go to work and try to design in mine. I designed it so that the riser in the long bow would be extended instead of just having a short one. And well, they think, well, gee, I got a big long working lever. Oh boy, a long lever should go and throw it farther. But we got 2. And when you have that lever on that area, it takes a lot of motion, but you aren't losing the arrow from here, you're losing the arrow from here. So the lever action, if you put out on the end, yes, you'd have leverage, you'd be faster. But we're shooting it from the center. So actually, why have all this thing working? It just takes energy to bend it. So that's what we're talking about in bow design. Also, what you want to do is have a bow so that, say at 15 inches, you're going to weigh it and see what the weight is. Now you're going to work and draw it back there to 28 inches. You're going to weigh it. Okay. The bow that has every bow is going to be the same weight at 28. Same weight. But what is the draw weight at 15? the one that's the highest is going to be the fastest bow. Amen. Amen. I don't care what materials it has, it's going to be the fastest. Talk about carbon and so forth on the bow. What does it do? It lightens the mass. That's what it does. Also, it's got a little bit quicker recovery time. So you'll gain a little bit in speed because a foot to 2 foot over glass. That's all you're going to gain. You're paying all that money for that carbon. Where does carbon come in effectively? Probably in the tournament shooter, the Olympic shooter, because graphite laid up in this type of portion does not go to work and absorb sunlight as much. It's heavy. It doesn't change. So therefore, the guy shooting 70 meters, carbon, yes, is going to be a little advantage. And he's going to have a little less mass to move and so forth. But for you guys that, if you don't want to pay that extra money, don't even bother with it. Stay with your plain good old glass limbs and so forth, and you're going to get all the performance you need out of that bow for hunting and for field shooting and so forth. Don't even bother. Truthfully, with buying. If you got a good glass limbs, are excellent. And I designed a new concept here in just using actually western red cedar and a split or a gain bamboo. And in having that, of course, the bamboo is quite light end grained, gives it more consistency. And of course, having the yew wood on this side is lighter than bamboo. So what am I doing? I'm trying to work and save and conserve on the amount of the weight or the mass of the bow limb that I'm bending. And of course, that's where you gain performance. I can get these things here designed out so in bending performance, up to as high as 94% efficiency, which is unheard of. In most of the bows that I even test and everything else today, Hoyts and Win-Win, all those that I test and so forth, you get about 88%, 87, 88%. That's just in bending efficiency. Even though I have achieved that, the speed is, I can equalize it pretty close, but that's about it. No big deal. That should just, and you can tell that off of forced draw curves. If you make up a forced draw curve where you work and draw the string every inch and you weigh it, and then you subtract the difference between all of those and divide it by the peak weight of the bow, and it gives you an efficiency factor. If you do that off the same riser, everything's got to be the same. You can only have one change at a time. If I'm going to be testing, I want to do it with the same riser, with all the limbs. So if there's any actual change in angle coming off, it'll make a difference. So I want to be sure I have exactly everything equal in all instances, and I want to make one change at a time, and that's it. So back to the story here a little bit, and follow myself along. We mentioned potential energy, that's the stored energy. And the kinetic energy is energy in motion, and so forth. And then, so I somewhat follow I mentioned the carbon, and the tapers. The taper himself here generally will taper down about 3 thousandths per inch. And that is going to be varied. Now, it just means that if you measure it here and move down here, it's 3 thousandths less, 3,000 less, 3,000 less, 3,000 less, 3,000. And that's what gives you some of your bending characteristics and your smoothness. That increases the smoothness of your bending by the fact that it can work in that aspect. That's how limbs are designed. You can change that. They can go to 2 thousandths, 1,000, I don't care. But that's what I used to use, and now I see Win-Win's using the same thing, 3 thousandths per inch on their limb design.
Talking just core, Jim, not the glass, just the wood core, the laminations, or the glass also?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, carbon, of course, is best on this is called the stretch side, and this is the compression side. In between between those two, there's a zero, there is no pressure, no extension. Either one is called the tension portion of the limb. On tension, it wants to do this. It doesn't bend either way, but it wants to slip. And that's where we have failures sometimes in the limb materials, is on that section, because it wants to slip rather than do any bending. So that's the neutral point of the limb. And we get about about 15% stiffness out of the tensile strength on carbon, and is higher, and about 4 times the amount of fibers that are in that limb. So follow along here a little bit. Keep my mind working. So I follow my my booklet just slightly anyway. What we have, of course, we have, and I'll go into this just a little bit here. Endless strings or so forth are faster than Flemish strings. If you have the same amount of strands and the same number of strands throughout the whole thing for your testing, you will find that there is more material used in a Flemish string than there is in an endless. Therefore, it weighs more. Therefore, it's going to be slower. And I used to send material up to our engineer up there in Wisconsin, and he did all the testing for me, and that's what we found. Strictly the weight of the string is what makes a difference. The lighter the string mass is, the faster it's going to be, because you don't have to move as much. It takes energy to move mass. So therefore, that's whatever string you want to make, but that's what the difference is between the two. So that's important. And I mentioned the fact that the friction, of course, is always the other problem that we have in the arrow coming across your wrist. Of course, that adds friction more or less to your shot. Anytime you have that air friction, you also have air friction in the air for the arrow itself out there when it's shot. And gravity and weight are mass are two different things. Mass never changes. I don't care where I take this mass of this bow, I don't care where I go with it and everything else, it never changes. But the weight is going to change. The weight of them in mass is going to change depending upon elevation, depending on when you're standing at this point on this earth right here, gravity pushes down on this towards the center of the earth. And if they're depending upon how thickness of what the material is between you and the center of that earth, weight will change. The weight of the bow will change. The mass weight of it will change. But there's difference. So when you think about mass, that does not change, but weight will change depending upon elevation. You can take this up on the moon, and of course it's going to weigh about 15 times less than it does on the earth. And that's how gravity affects materials. Okay. And I've got so much to cover, I want to be careful here that I get all the information to you. I did mention the laws of inertia for you and the mass. Yeah, we've got that pretty much covered here, I think. I'm not going to ask for questions or anything like that because we want to keep this flowing. And I think we'll cover that well enough to move on, because we got so much I want to get to the archery eventually. Anyway, that's, while I'm at it, holding these bows. That's the other big thing. Well, there we are, we've got the bow. Now how do you hold it? Well, you grip it right here, don't you? You want the string aligned with the center of that limb, don't you? No, you don't. You want to line the string to the center of the arrow, where the arrow is laying on the bow. That's how you want to hold it. And I'm going to put this on here, but I am not going to put it on the knock. I'm not going to put it knocked. So you can point it out towards you people and you can feel safe, because I will draw it back, but I can't shoot it. Now, alignment is this. That string aligns with the arrow, dot with the center of the bow. Now I'm going to miss you, but now there's where it aligns. That's where you want it, because the string always returns to where the tips are located. So if you're thinking about aligning the string with the center of the limb, no. Don't forget that. Don't even think about it. Biter marks, all that sort of stuff. And I want to move around so you can see this principle. There, now I've got it in line with the arrow. Now I've got it in line with the center of the bow. See what happens to the tip of the arrow? It really turns out. Oh wait, now I'm going to force that arrow around. Now I'm aligned. There it is. There's your alignment. Here's alignment with the limb. There's your alignment. So why do I want to miss you? Now I'm going to hit you. Look at this, guys. Here it is. Here's your alignment. There's with the arrow. Here's with the limb. So you hold the bow so it's aligned with the arrow. See what it does to the arrow? Now you're pushing on the center of its mass. And if you're not pushing something on the center of a mass, it'll move in an oscillating motion. So what you're seeing in your poor flight out there, you're seeing that you're not pushing it on the center of its mass. You're pushing on, and you can straighten out your spine, your arrow flight, and so forth, simply by getting alignment. There's alignment right there. No, it's not. Here's alignment. There it isn't. Alignment. There's alignment. This isn't. Now I'm shooting alignment. So that's how important string. Now, once you do this in your pre-draw, once you decided there's my alignment, now I can go over and draw this thing back here anywhere, and it stays there. That alignment will stay there. But now I can see the string. Where is it? Man, it's way out of line. It's not in any place around. But I draw in line. So that's one of the most important things you can think of, is getting your hand hold. How do you hold the bow? That's how you hold the bow. Is simply by lining it with your. Also, don't be afraid to shoot the cock feather in, not out, in. Because what you're going to be getting, if this arrow is too stiff and so forth, the back end of the arrow will go toward and go towards the bow and touch the bow. Absolutely. So when it does, of course, you're going to get some wear. But now this feather down here is going to clear that bow. This way, when you put it this way, it hits on here, it jumps up. It's going to have got a lot more action in that arrow when it comes through here. It's going to jump up. And we'll get into, well, I might as well open up Pandora's box and get into more of it and enter the arrow into it right now too. How arrows work. Arrows are designed as long tubes. It's a long tube, so we have the problem. If we have a solid mass, we think of pushing on solid mass. If we push on the center of that mass, it moves in a straight line. As soon as we push a little bit off, it wants to oscillate. But also, if we have something sitting here on this table, I also have to find its center of mass to push it straight, but I also have to overcome gravity, or the friction of the table. So I got to find its center of mass in order to push it in that straight line. If I push it like that, it starts going in a circle, but it can't move freely. So that's again how things work. And we talk about spine. The spine of the arrow is taken when they measure it at 28 inches. They put 1.9 ounces of weight, or up to 2, on the center, and it gives you a deflection. How much it deflects is at that point, and they call that spine. Okay, that's the spine of that arrow at 28 inches. But now you add that length to it. What happens? You think, well, am I changing the spine? Be doing that? No, the spine of that arrow is 600. You can't change the fact that that's a 600 spined arrow. But what you're changing the effects of inertia. Inertia says every arrow at rest, or anything at rest, wants to stay at rest before it moves. And once it's in motion, it wants to stay in motion before it stops. So we're relying on friction down there to stop it. But when we put it in motion, we want to have it. So that's what we're having. We're having the fact that the arrow doesn't. So what happens? It starts into bend first. It bends first because it wants to stay at rest. So the spine at that 28 determines where the center was, and that's the center of that mass. So therefore, when you're starting to push it, it wants to bend first. But that's simple to say. You can draw pictures, but what is in archery? It's moving. It's moving. So even though you want to start out and you're hitting it with 30, 40, 50, 60 pounds of energy that's going to move it, so that spine of that arrow, its mass, has to work and equal that a little bit, so how much it's going to flex, how much the flexing is occurring. So don't get all confused about that sort of stuff but that's what's causing that arrow to bend, is the fact that it wants to stay at rest. And I've done that with wood arrows down there at the shop years ago. And I kept going down in the spine of the arrow. And I put a glove on my hand and I had a jacket on so I knew what was going to happen. And I start shooting until I got down to a certain spine and it explodes. I mean, that arrow just shattered, pieces going around all over. Because I finally hit the mass of the push, was overcoming the friction of the arrow wanting to stay in place. And they break. So you think that, oh well, the arrow now I'm shooting it, lighter spine goes to the right for the right-handed shooter, and the stiffer arrow goes to the left a little bit. Well, that is in its bending motion where it comes off when it leaves the string. That's what causes that. What straightens it out? This. That overcomes any of that bending action. Yes, you want to find an arrow that the bow likes, so that you don't have quite as much bending action, a little bit less. Then it becomes a tunable arrow. Up until that time, it's not tunable. When you have one that's too stiff, you can move it in and out and so forth, and it always hits the target with the same angle. Yes, the point doesn't move that much or where you're hitting because we got feathers. The mass of the spine will move it a little bit left and right, but otherwise, no, it does not go to work and change where the point hits. When an arrow leaves the string, it always goes in a perfectly right angle to the string. It flies in a straight line. The oscillation that you see around there is caused by how you set it in motion or what the bending action was on the bow. That's what you see in flight. Otherwise, even then it goes around. It's a straight line that it takes. In order to move it, you have to have some sort of force that is more than the mass of the arrow in order to move it in flight. Rain will do it. Snow is pretty light. It's not going to affect it too much. But that will move it in its path. Otherwise, what you see is only the action that you put in the arrow. There was studies down in England, over in Norway, and they were shooting. They found that that particular test, when they shot it around 60 yards, that at about 43 yards is where the arrow happened to be perfectly straight without any bending action. Other than all that other points, because they set up machines all the way along the line to follow its action in that arrow. And that's what they found for that distance. And that was that particular arrow. So don't get too excited about all this stuff. And nodes, heaven's sakes, don't get carried away when they start talking about nodes. I see some of these arrow companies right now are talking about, well, they found the node of the arrow, and the node of the arrow is what you should go to work and be having your arrow rest set at. That is so much blue smoke, I never heard anything like it, tell you the truth. Because let's explain it. When this arrow is sitting here, it's going to have a center of balance, and that's generally the point, that's generally where the arrow is going to be bending from that point. So that is going to change, that will change with the amount of weight because it doesn't want to start out. It doesn't want to start out, so therefore it's going to reflect, if I have a 200 grade arrow, that's going to move that point, that balance point, slightly, that's all it does. But when you put on too much weight on that tip, you have to overcome gravity. When you start overcoming gravity, that's what all of a sudden you get a spread in your shooting gap like this instead of having a gap like this. But some people, hunters, want more kinetic energy. So they want to get more weight on that arrow to get cut through bone. Well, I've only had one deer that I didn't have penetration on. That was on an antelope because I did hit bone and so forth. And that was the only one in my whole career that I've ever had a problem with. Other than that, I've always got penetration on animals with it. But I wanted accuracy. I want that arrow to be going as flat as I possibly can to take out the guesswork. So that's why I want, and speed also is more important as far as gaining kinetic energy. Speed will gain it faster than kinetic energy or weight adding to it that slows the arrow down. So I got figures on that too that show that exchange in there. So that's other things that can take some of the smoke out of this and so forth, guys, because there's a lot of it out there, and it should help you to make better sense out of what you're trying to accomplish. Look for an arrow that your bow likes. And I am getting really carried away here and changing schedule, but one thing flows into another. What I did in this bunch of arrows that I have is I took these and I got so that I made these here 1 inch shorter each time with the same weight, so we can see the difference in what happened downrange on having that. And I can show you. Well, I will later. But anyway, that's what we accomplished when we put that, so you can see the difference. And what it amounted to was very, very little as far as left, right, or anything else. The arrow tip still went into the same area on the target. But naturally, you can get a little variation because of the weight. But it didn't change hardly, very, very little. What changed the most on this set here, I've got set up where these are all the same length, but they go from 100 grains up to 250 grains. And you'll see the same thing. You'll be surprised how at close out of the bow, how much they stay without hardly any change of the target because they're fletched. The bare shaft will go to work and show you more how it goes to work, and actually these tip will still stay pretty much in line, slightly different because of where it comes off in its bending action as it leaves the bow. In that bend there's this little place, and that's what causes it to go a little bit left and right, is in that bending at where it leaves it. So where it was pointed at that moment in time, that's what causes that little left or little right. But what straightens it out? The fletching. So look for an arrow that your bow likes. You can find one that it's going to like a little better, and that you can do with testing with that bare shaft, just to kind of get one at a certain distance, at about 6 feet, this distance right here. Get it that it aligns a little better. That's more of a tunable arrow. You can work with it a whole lot better. Your bow likes that. And that's going to change from bow to bow. So don't think it's going to be the same. So whatever bow you're shooting, try to find an arrow. If you're going to play with it, just find an arrow that hits where you're looking. When it does that, hey, that's the bow that you like. That's what you want. We'll get into that also about concentration and all that awareness. So I'm covering a number of areas here quickly, and so we're going to try to get as much out here as I can in the short period of time that we've got. Because if I slow it down as I should, I could be here for 2 days with you. But I'll just show you a little bit about how some of that stuff works. Let's see if I've got some bare shafts here someplace. I had a bundle of them. If I knew what I, yeah, here's some. Right here. I think there's a couple of them. Now, let's see. I'll just lay these here. Now, I've got bare shafts, and now the fact that I've only got about 6 pounds of bow here, you can see that I'm not using a lot of momentum against that arrow, so therefore spine doesn't hardly even enter the picture because I'm starting out like a compound. It starts out so slow that you don't have much of a bending because due to inertia, the loss of inertia. There'll be very little effect to it because I'm starting it with such light weight. If I'm going to start it with 30 pounds or 40 pounds, then I'm going to start having the effects the arrow wants to stay, so it's going to bend more before it wants to move. But it is moving while that bending is occurring. So this is the principle of it. Oh, by the way, that yellow spot down there, I really don't like to hit it. I like that yellow spot, so I always like to just get as close as I can. Anyway, so there it is. You can see this bare shaft coming out of here. There it is. Come back, set it up. Boy, that's a good shot. Great. So that's the principle anyway. You can just, how the fact you bring back. Woo, they want a group there. That's the way that arrow wants to go. But that's the shot more or less right there that we're looking at. That's just the way things work. But even the bare shaft now comes out of this bow. And surprisingly enough, it comes out as if it should be to lighten spine. It's going to the right, the tail is off to the left. So it looks like, so it's a misleading in a lot of your thinking about how things work. And so I'm holding it with alignment. Alignment now, we'll concentrate a little bit, get that concentration down here. There. Then we can straighten it out. Simply by getting the alignment and stopping for a minute, and that's the difference between a loose concentration, as I did with the first ones, versus staying down or getting my alignment, and I corrected it just by the shot, how I shot. And that's so important, people. That's what we're really going to get into here in a little bit and spend as much time as we can on the Archer. So I'm going to jump now into tuning the bow. How you got your new bow in, and get this out of the way a little bit. Dave, can you help me up here for a sec? For the camera effect. Let's move this chair out into here so the camera can pick it up. I'll take this off of here. I guess that'd be the simplest way.
You want it directly in front?
Yeah, 2 chairs over here.
Enough right there.
Yeah, if it will clear if my limbs will clear, grab that end there. Get it right at the end of the bow.
Like such.
Yeah. Fine.
Good to go.
Okay, you've got your brand new bow. It's just come into the house, your IFL system. and so forth. And I'll show you over here so that camera doesn't pick it up. I'm going to move just for a second. It comes into you at home, and you've just stuck the limbs. You've stuck the limbs into your new IFL system. You want to have this completely clean, nothing on it whatsoever. And let's do it perhaps right here. Be easier to see, even though it's laying on paper here. Let's get this out. I'll show it. There. Now, what you there? It's laying like this. You got your limbs stuck in there. You want to work and have just a little bit of a ruler. Most of the limbs are about 40, around 5 millimeters, a centimeter, 5 millimeters. In width. Anyway, 2.5 is a good measurement. You want to center. And if you just put that out here to the tip, you can see there it is. Yeah, it's right pretty close. Okay, this one here. Yeah, okay, that's fine. Start out. That's your first check. Now you know that at least the manufacturer what you got. Because if it wasn't, you can adjust your IFL bolts and define that center, because that's what I want. I want that center so the string now is going to pass through the center of my riser. Not in line with the limb. I don't care about that. It's the string always returns to where the tips are. So you want that aligned in that fashion. All right, now we'll move on. I'm rushing this. I can feel it. I want to get too much in and too fast. Okay, here's your bow. I've got this. You can do this at home. That's why I got these chairs. You can get 3 of these units in the brochure, and there it tells you you can get them at Amazon for about $10, and for 3 of them. And you use 2 of them like this. Put them on here, right at the end of your riser. Put it over here. You look for that center balance. And then you also have one. Here it is. That's for your string, and your mark right is right here. Now what I've got. Now I can go to work, and this one here is off slightly and so forth, just trying to be sure that it's on the chair right. That's pretty close. Now you can go work and then adjust these settings, and right now this arrow here is actually, it's set pretty nice right now. It's aligned real well. With looking down here, leave your arrow hang, and what it'll give you where you should set your plunger, and you want that arrow now is going through the center of my riser. It's matched up here, it's going through the center. Where it hangs, you can see the arrow, it's wobbly. See? So it hangs right at the center line. That is your center line, that's how the bow should be held, that's how it should be shot. And it's simple to do. And you just move. Now if you want to move the limbs itself to that alignment, you just work and push on this side here, and it will move that limb in that direction. And you want to get both of them so that they align so the string is crossing through the center. It's the simplest way to align a limb, a bow, and it really works well. Now I've also got, now I can work and set my build out. Now I can go work and bring that arrow out right to that, touching the arrow, and make that just a little bit positive. Move it out just slightly beyond, just a little bit, because we found that in testing, the worst place you can shoot an arrow is if it's perfectly dead center. Any little washing in opens up the group. But if it's a little positive, it'll group. Outside is a little bit better than inside. Inside will work almost as well, but outside is just a little bit better to grouping. And that's from testing that. We shoot 15 groups of 4 arrows at a time to test all this stuff. So that's the result. So that's rerun. But I think you can see the simplicity of it, guys. And how easy it is to do. And then now you can also set your knocking height. Now I'm about a 1/4 inch high. Perfect. So there it is. So you can set your knocking point that way, you can work and set your alignment that way, you can get your tips where you want them to be, all that. And then if you do want to move the arrow slightly, then you always tighten the side that you want the arrow to move. If you want to move this arrow in somewhere, you tighten on the side, the direction you want the arrow to move. Does that make sense to you? Yeah, that's the one you tighten. It's just opposite of what you would do to move the whole limb. Just the opposite. And then tuning. And you can play with that and you'll learn the system. Because when you end up with if you're going to end up as a Olympic shooter or end up with, well, I can pick up the other bow over here and get this one out of the way. this is an Olympic setup here, and we'll cover that right away too. IFL Olympic setup. And what we have now is, if you want to go working, you should end up with a well-attuned arrow that the string, the arrow, the sight, and the stabilizer are all in line. Then you know you've got the right arrow and the right setup and a tunable thing. And that's really the same thing. You want to get this bow so it's aligned in with your center of your arrow, center of that riser. It's so important. And this is for Olympic equipment. And then your sight it'll all align if you've got the right spine to start with. So that's part of it. And so that's really the setup. That's an Olympic setup there and so forth on the, I guess I've got everything covered. Oh, sight out, in and out. You know, so many feel, well, okay, if I'm going to move the sight out, isn't it closer to the target? And I can see it better in my vision. So, no, guys, it's linear. When you have it out that far, that circle gets pretty big. And if your concentration goes to trying to slow that circle down, you're not going to shoot a good arrow. Get it back in here. The arrow's motion then is a whole lot less, a whole lot smaller. You don't see near as much motion. Also, you gain more distance out of your settings, and they'll be closer together if you have the sight in closer. So don't get carried away with the sales pitches and so forth and think you got to have a great big long extension. No, you're going to be better off if it's in closer. And you think, well, I can see it a little bit more. You don't want to be seeing that thing. Your concentration, your focus, we'll get into that now, is down on the target, not on the sight. It's down at the target. And now, I'll mention that, I've got so much in my head here to tell you guys, I get a little bit confused off of it myself because I get ahead of myself. I want to get so much to you. So if you put up with me and straighten it out in your mind. You got an old 96-year-old man up here trying to convey everything to you, so put up with me and forgive me a little bit. Anyway, back to let's talk about awareness. And awareness is what they used to talk about, conscious mind and subconscious. The psychiatrists are getting away from that today too. It's really, because it didn't make much sense. Subconscious, conscious, well, if you think about it over time, what you're reading right now and so forth, if you dwell on it, if it's something you like, it'll go into your permanent memory and so forth overnight while you're sleeping. And you retain some of it. Some of you don't like it, it's forgotten. Then it moves into your long-term, and your short-term memory is what's going on right now. Let's talk about what makes sense to me. It is focus, awareness. I can sit here and I can think about that camera over there looking at me, but at the same time, my awareness, I know who's out here. I know there's an audience out here, there's people out there, but I also, over time, I can think on that focus, I can get down and looking at that, and I can totally not even know you're there. But that takes time for that to settle in. It takes about 5 to 6 minutes. Once you turn on your focus, your awareness, it takes quite some time before it's gone. Think of yourself out there on the road driving. You've got your mind on the road down there, you're looking down, you're just staring, you're staring down. You don't know what's going on around you until you let your awareness open up a little bit and all of a sudden become conscious of emotion. Were you aware of the cars in the other lane out there before? No, you weren't. You didn't even know they were going out there. But all of a sudden let your mind expand. Oh yeah, you're looking here, but you know there's cars going down that road in the other lane over there. It's built in as part of our protection system. When we go to work in our focusing, our awareness gives us a warning that what's happening around us. And then we can become aware of it. I can sit there at night, I used to be able to sit there and watch TV and not even know that Bess was sitting over there until she started talking. Then all of a sudden, oh yeah, my wife, she's still over there. And that's awareness and how it works. And in shooting too. And from Zen Archery, Zen says, the focus, don't let it scatter. And then Zen Archery is almost a religious type of shooting techniques and so forth. So that's what they comes from. Don't let your awareness scatter. In other words, don't become aware of your awareness. And that's what happened right here. I was just thinking about shooting and so forth until I stopped and get my focus on that, closer to that yellow spot. And then it went there. Just simply by doing that. Up in that was where my awareness was down in that corner. They shot scattered. But as soon as I focused in, it went closer to where my eye was. So that's what you're trying to gain. So anytime you put that bow up there and so forth, and you're looking down there at that, and I will turn this in, you'll see it'll bounce some. But that's what you want to do. You want to look at that spot down there and let your focus. Now I'm going to introduce Mojo. I'm mixing this up quite a bit, but I want to introduce it. Mojo. What in the world is Mojo? Well, the Cajuns called it part of our magic, is what they called it. Part of our magic. It's in our bodies and our systems and so forth. And I like to use it now in yoga and so forth. They call it Pana, P-R-A-N-A, Pana. And that it's your energy in your body. And in Tai Chi, it's Qi or Chai. And it's your energy. They say dirty Qi, or you're bringing in Qi into your body by your breath, or you're expelling it through your breath. And that's so true. It moves accordingly. When you get up on that shooting line, well, I'm adding a lot of things out of sequence here, but I want to get them across as I think of them. When you get on the shooting line, if you want to get a clear head, you breathe out. And then when you breathe in, your mind is settled. And sports psychiatrists, I've worked with one of the very best sports psychiatrists that a fellow had down in Indiana, who has trained basketball top sports people. His whole theory was that you take that breath, stop, and then you become the target or the arrow, and you see the arrow going into the spot you want to hit, or you see the ball going through the basket that you're shooting at, or you see the ball and the bat meeting themselves. That is what your awareness or your focus becomes. And that's how they train, and that's what we look at. And that's in golf or any of the sports that are out. So my Mojo, I go right now, I feel, where is it? Well, I relax, stand up, all of a sudden it settles. I can feel the energy going right down into my legs, right down into my feet, and I become posture. And there it is. Now I'm going to open up the other box. Shoulder, use your back. What the hell is using your back? How do you use your back? That's a big area so forth. Guys, it's your scapulas. Your scapulas are free floating bones. There's no feeling in the bone, but the scapula is a free floating bone, not attached to the bone, to the body in any way except by muscle. Muscle holds the scapula right there. So what in our ability, we're using our arms is what archery is all about. It's an arm sport, and we're using our, but where is its basis? The scapulas, the shoulder blades. That is the point. It's the point for the arm to rotate in. It's a pivot point. It's our anchor. It's our anchor for all the bones, all the muscles attached to it. That's the anchor. This is not an anchor. It is an aiming reference. That's all that it is. It's an aiming reference because it can vary. If you're going to be a 3 fingers under, if you're going to be a split finger, if you're going to be an Olympic shooter, this is only a reference for the knock to the eye. It's the rear sight. It's an aiming reference only. It's not an anchor. It's a pivot point for the anchoring. So you do come back here, you touch, now it becomes a pivot point. Now it's set, yes, it's a pivot point. But what does it do? There's your anchoring. Your anchoring is getting the muscles to set the scapula. When that scapula sets up, there, now the scapula is anchored. That's anchoring. Now I can do all of this, I can do anything I want, and holds right there, and the scapula is holding. There, right here, there it is. There's anchoring. That's what anchoring is. You anchor your scapula. And that's where all the action takes place, is right there. Now you've got these tubes and so forth laying out there and so forth too, and we'll get into it. I am doing a lot of jumping around, I know it, but it's the way my mind is working today. You can pick up those rubber bands, you've all got them there and so forth and things, and we're going to teach you here and share them, whatever you can and so forth. Get a hold of them and just make not a loop out of them, but just take the ends of them. And what you're going to be doing is learn to draw it. Now, posture. Posture is so important because posture sets the scapulas. Let's look at, oh, my good old friend. Think of his name, I'm terrible on names. He's shooting the squat guy. You should maybe read some of his stuff, the squat, the guy, Brian.
Brian Sorrell?
Yeah, and the squat and shoot, why it works. He said, I don't know why it works, but it works for me. And I've watched him and see him out at 43 yards, probably his point on, go to work and lay 4 arrows on top of each other at 43 yards. Beautiful. But what it is, there you are, you're set. You're set. Man, you got that. Now what do you have to do? Put those shoes, now the scapulas are going right into one position. There they are, they're right there. You come back on, you can't move. Everything's right there. You can't move. So it works. That's why it worked. He didn't know why it worked, he said, but that's why it worked. Because you set the scapulas in a position they couldn't move. Same thing here. Start with your posture. Get your posture, get your mojo down into your feet, feel heavy and so forth. Look at the spots you want to hit and just let that bow flow up into its place. Get it up into here. Now my scapulas are set. Now I'm going to go for my reference. Here's my reference point. Now I'm going to transfer it to anchor. I'm going to anchor the scapula. There it's scapula. Now it's anchored. Every force, every action, there is a reaction. So if I'm pulling here, I'm pushing here. But that's 2 separate actions. Push is push, pull is pull. When we put them together, it's spread. The spread, the action of your pull, builds your push, and it's a spread. It's a spread where the two are equal. Now that's what you're doing. So I can put it up here. Automatically, this arm is going to work and build to this. It has to or it's going to collapse. So now it's building. All your energy is building equally in there. Now I'm going to anchor. There's my anchor. You can see everything's set up. And there's the release. That's what you're looking for, guys. So start with posture. But you're going to get out into different stands. Even if you got to do this down here, get your shoulders set. Get your shoulders set if you're under some shoot out there where it's bad standing or you got to get through brush. Get your shoulders set and stare at the spots you want to hit and let everything flow right to that measurement. There is no aiming in archery. No aiming. It's only bringing it up to a picture and holding your picture. And if you start looking at your aim, you're looking at the tip, you're going to have a miss because you've taken your focus away from what you want to hit. And your whole body, and besides, if you look at a solid object, and they'll tell you that in most of the sports, it'll settle your body down. Because when you're looking up there, that's where your conscious goes. Everything goes to that spot automatically. Automatically it goes to that spot, your whole body, your whole thinking. And if you look down here, if I look here, now this becomes wobbly. What am I doing? I've lost all my form. I've lost my nice solidness. Oh, there it's weak. There, now I'm solid. Here I'm not. Focus is so important, guys, to keep your mind on the job you want to do. And you can only have one thought in your mind at a time. You can't have 2 thoughts in your mind at any time. Because if you do, it becomes awareness. So get your focus down there. Look at that spot. Let everything flow to it. And they say, well, I shoot instinctive. I don't see the arrow. When I first heard that many, many years ago when I joined the 9 Mile Archery Club, I says, they don't see the arrow? Holy cow. I want to see the arrow. I want to know where the arrow was pointed. So I kept my mouth shut because, man, these guys have been around for a long time. They're hunters. They knew it. I don't see the arrow when I shoot. I shoot instinctive. Well, guys, no. It becomes a learned behavior. You have to teach yourself to become instinctive. And they don't want to admit that, but you do. It's a learned behavior. And now we don't, right now I'm standing here because I'm thinking about the fact that I was moving. No, but all of a sudden I become aware of it. But you have to learn to crawl before you can walk. You have to learn balance before you can, and those are learned behaviors. So what you're doing, you're training yourself. You're training those muscles to come up here like this. You're training that. But now I can take my awareness and block it out so I don't see the arrow. Then you can say I can do it without awareness. Then you can say, yes, now I'm trained. Now I can shoot instinctive. because I'm not aware of the arrow. I'm just aware that I know that it's pointing, I know that it's pointing, there it's pointing all right, but you can block that out, see very little of it. Then you can say, yes, it's become a learned behavior that I'm shooting instinctively because you're not aware of the arrow. That's your, but you know where it's pointed. It's like the dead gun principle. The guy shooting the dead gun principle, he goes to work and he's looking at his enemy out there, and what does he do? He shoots like this. Is he aware? Is he pointing? Is he thinking of looking at his gun? He's not looking at it. If he looked down at his gun, he's going to be a dead man. But he's looking out there and he does that automatically. There it is. You throw it up. Automatically. There it is. I'm only, now I can change it. And I know where it's going, but I can't see it, but I can feel where it's pointed. I know now it should be pointed at you. That's the dead gun principle. The same thing in archery. And of course, the guy that's still standing is the guy that kept his focus on his job and didn't start thinking about where the gun was pointed. And he's the one probably still standing. That's why he is still standing. So that's so important, guys. Focus. I can't emphasize it enough. I keep repeating it. Focus, focus, focus. Learn to react to it. If you want to learn a good bow hand, a good bow arm, you need clearance at your bow arm. Absolutely, you need clearance. And get this bone out of the way. If I stand here like this and I put my arm like this and I touch my ear and come out, man, I got hyperextension. Girls will have more hyperextension than men, and they claim that came from all the years of carrying heavier pails, and you turn the elbows in more in order to get strength for it, or taking the baby on the shoulder or anything else. So women generally have a little bit more hyperextension than men. Now, let's get rid of that hyperextension. How do you do it, guys? It's pretty simple. Take this, when you're standing there, take your arm and move it in this way until the bow is laying with the elbows up, and you're laying your hand is flat against your chest. Now open it up. That hyperextension's gone. There is no hyperextension. Just by doing this to this, it's gone. If I let it come in like this, if I touch my ear this way, then there it is. This way it's, now you can learn that. I've learned it through the year. You learn. Now if you want a stronger bow arm, there is a trigger point. There's always action for, well, for heaven's sakes, James. There's always actions for an action. There's always an explanation. If you want a strong bow arm, all you have to work and do, guys, is right here. See how that jumps? See the tricep jumping? Just by pressing on this point here. There, see how that tricep moves? Okay, that's a trigger point. So that's the point you really want to get on your bow. But if you want a great bow arm and so forth, tighten your bow side, tighten your tricep, tighten it, and that automatically turns it. What does it do? It gives me bone alignment. It also sets my hand. There it is. Now I've got a strong hand. And it's that simple. And that's what you're looking for. Now, you have to learn that, though. You have to learn that motion by practice. But get it up here, turn it like that. There. Now I've got clearance. Now I've got my wrist alignment. I've got my hand. Everything is solid, relaxed. It relaxes into one position. Use that on any grip. If you want to change your grip, change it to that position if you want. But get that and hold that with alignment. Get it up here this way. Now you've got a strong bow arm. No, you've got a bow arm now that's like a 2x4. And that's what you want. Some people want to preset it. I don't. Yes, I get it up here. There, I set it like that. But that's it. I don't try to work and then leave it set there and just draw against that sucker. No, I let it flow up, set it, draw it back to my aiming reference, then transfer the weight back into here. And if you tighten this bicep just a little bit, just a little tension, keeps the arm from doing this. That's what the bicep, tricep do. They fold your forearm. That's all they can do. They can't pull the string back. They do this. But they work in conjunction with the shoulder girdle, moving the upper arm back. They work together. But you want to tighten it up, and if you do tighten it a little bit, you'll get this reaction. Anytime if you leave it hang out here, what do you get? You get this reaction. That's why your arms fly out. It's because of that. So if I'm up here like this, become an arm shooter, does this, and what happened? The arm went this way to react for that. Every action has a reaction. But if I do this, come up here, bring it back here, anchor it, now everything went straight. Everything went straight. There was no reason to move off. So that's what's happening. Every action has a reaction. And just learn those. Those are laws. Those are the rules of the game. The same with every arrow. I'm going to keep repeating that. Every arrow that is ever shot or ever will be shot must be pointed so when it leaves the string at what you want to hit. That is a law. How you achieve that, I don't care. You can achieve it in all the. Now you see reading about, well, he has the linear draw where he gets out here, linear draw, or the alignment, it moves in, all this sort of action. If they accomplish that moment of truth, who cares? I don't care. They say, well, which one's more efficient, the inline or the linear? I say, the one that has the fewest number of muscles that you're using, that's going to be the best one. The fewer number of muscles you can use for any act, the smoother the act will be. When I shot professionally and so forth, the best compliment I ever received was, Jim, you make it look so easy. I says, thank you. You don't know how hard I have worked to make it look easy. And the simple thing, use the fewest number of muscles that you can. And learn tension. What is it? And don't forget Mojo. Don't forget Mojo. Get that weight down into your stance. In doing some balancing tests and so forth, I found out that they had all kinds of tests for me to do and whatnot and so forth. And if it was up, man, I was in the wall. I was pretty doggone wiggly and so. But all of a sudden, I applied Mojo. I let the weight go down to where it should be, down, balancing the bottom of my feet. Now I can close my eyes, move it up and down. I can back beside this, and I'm standing here nice and straight. Try it, people, and see what you get out of it when you're practicing. See how you get. See how when you get your Mojo down to where it's needed, it takes your. If you're thinking about your up here about your balance, you're in trouble. You're not going to have good balance. Let your weight go down to where it's needed. Let your Mojo flow down and anchor you. Now you're solid. The same with shooting, wind-wise and the whole bit. And point your toes so that they're straight. They're straight. You can have them now, they're still straight. In line with your knees, that takes the wiggle out of your body. If you flare your toes out like this, now I'm wiggling. Now I'm fighting the wind, I'm fighting my stance, I'm doing that. But to get your toes straight, oh, there it is. Man, I have a hard time moving. I'm solid. Those are the things to think about and learn. So just start with your stance. So just think about it until it becomes a habit. Once you do it often enough, you'll do it instinctively. But it doesn't become an instinct until it's learned. Once it is learned, you do those actions with little to no conscious thought. Then it is instinctive because it's a learned behavior. So that's so important. I keep emphasizing that, and I will all my life. But look for that alignment. Look for that string arrow alignment so that you get the string, hold the bow with the string arrow alignment. Canting the bow is just going to move it. Try to get the bow as straight as you can. You can learn that pointing, but it's going to change with distance a little bit. So I'm a little bit hesitant about even saying canting the bow because it can change the picture. And if you can learn to accomplish your act, Keith Bain used to be one of my staff shooters down there, and he was a little bit of a canter, but also he laid it up there and he looked at it, so there it was. And that, so you can, but just learn that picture then and get that. It's a little harder to get the alignment. I like to get this because I can get better alignment. Howard Hill aimed his arrow. He aimed his arrow. He talks about that in his Hunting the Hard Way. He saw a ball off to the right and lower, according to the distance, a small one, and that's where he put the tip of his arrow on. Why did he do that? Because he was left-eyed dominant, shooting right hand. Most people don't know that. Howard Hill was left-eyed dominant, and he shot right-handed. And that's why he shot with that picture off to the side. But he looked at what he wanted to hit, but he saw that ball off to the side. That's where he put his arrow tip was out there to match that. That's how he shot. And also he did go to work and he talked in some instances where he used for distance, he did go to work because it's up in here. When he did this, it brought the arrow closer. When he did this, it changed it down. So it changed his distance on the target according to his angle. And he had that more or less learned that behavior, and he did it automatically without thinking. But that was part of his game. That's how things work. There's always an answer for how things work. And they obey laws. You just have to figure them out. Figure out what the law is. How are you applying it? How you achieve it? People here, they talk about the arrow. Oh well, the arrow went around the bow to get back in line with the string. How many times have you heard that? Plenty of times. No, it doesn't do that. It does not go around the bow. When that arrow leaves the string, it leaves it at a perfectly right angle. That's centrifugal force. Centrifugal force mainly applies to the action on the string more, but it's a way of describing an action, centrifugal force and centrifugal force, the two. So it's just a way of describing things. That's what that amounts to. So basically that's it. You just get that shot, get it down there, get your concentration down there, look, and that's it. Now we're going to shoot some arrows for you. I hope I've thought of everything. I got really, my brain, the way it jumps around is sometimes a little embarrassing, because all of a sudden a new thought comes in that pertains to a certain act, and I have to include it. So I have a little patience there. But in the manual that you've got, everything is put more into order and describes all the actions and says, if you want the things, yes, I do need a little money. Otherwise, just leave them here and don't bother about it. Don't worry about it. If you're not interested or don't want it, don't do it. All right, let me find a tab. I got so much stuff here.
On this side of the podium, there's one.
Okay. I need this thing, no. Maybe I don't. Oh, I better put an arm guard on, huh? I haven't talked much about, something else. I've got to go through this for you, though. Excuse me. Releases. Almost didn't cover that, and it's so important. All right, we've got the stance. Toes are pointing straight. We've got the stance. We've got our mojo. We've got that down. We've got our breath. Take it in. Settles the mind, clears it. We get our focus. We know how to hold the bow. We're going to do this. We're going to bring it up there. And we've got the arrow. Got it knocked. I've got my feather turned in toward the bow, because in essence, when you're holding it properly, it's going to get the best clearance. If you're holding the bow like this, you're going to get poor clearance. You're going to get a lot of rubbing. But also, you're not going to get a bounce off the side of your window, because as the arrow does do its action and its bending, when it gets out to a certain point, it starts to fall down. And you'll see a lot of times, if you have your wood arrows, you'll get a rub line along this arrow from where it does touch the side of your shelf. And when it's doing that, that's what it's doing, because of the bending action. Little stiff. So this way you will not get that bounce if you turn this feather in. Try it. If it doesn't work for you, forget it. That's one of my laws. Try everything you read and so forth, but it doesn't work, forget it. So anyway, but I do like to shoot them in, because that way it's a soft feather, even gets a little more wear, but it's only a straight line that it gets. It doesn't get the bounce. When I do it like this, then that feather is really, he says it passes. No. Then you really get a bounce off of your rest. You get another kick to it coming off. So don't be afraid to break the old traditional laws and shoot that feather in. It works. Now, releases. The hand, what you want to accomplish is you want a hand that looks like this. You don't want a hand that looks like this, so that has the knuckles sticking out like a fist. You want to get that hand straight so it aligns. So you don't want your knuckles acted in. You want it straight. Some will talk about, well, the wrist does this, the wrist does that. When you put the fingers on this thing here, yes, the wrist is there. You can see the wrist is bent slightly. But now, as I start my draw, it turns around and it comes in line. It comes in line. If you let it. If you're going to hold it there, you can hold it out there like this. But no, let it relax in line. It relaxes when you let it relaxes automatically. So one of the aspects is you get it up here like this now, and keep it on that first line. Keep it now. Now this is just the start of the lock. Keep it on the first line. And what it does when you do that, you can see now as I draw, the middle finger takes the load, and the other two here start to align to the string angle. Those other two will relax to the string angle. And then you aren't going to get this wear on this corner here from the pivoting action of the thing turning on the arrow. That's how you get a sore finger. It's friction from that finger turning on top. But if it's opened a little bit more, it lays on top, already there. Now it's laying on top. You're not going to get sore. Of course, the 3-fingered under, he doesn't have to worry about it. String marks don't have to worry about that. It's only the split-fingered guys that worry about that aspect. And there's 2 releases. One is you keep them closed. You keep the fingers closed like this. You get it back in here with the closed fingers, and now you're looking down, and you get them back. You keep them closed all the way through. It does open and slide. Keep them closed. You get your aim up here wherever you want, whatever anchor you want to use, and then you start to throw the fingers off. And you get that carry back because you have to open your extenders. You open the extenders to get that release off. My preference is the natural drop fingers where you, this is the other release. You start here, and you let it open up. You let it open up this way into a solid hook. Also, what did that do? It transferred the weight into the back, into the scapula. It moves it back there automatically when you do that. When you're up here, you keep them closed like this, you're more of an arm shooter. Then you're more action out here of an arm, and your action, your releases are flying, your hand flies back, you force it back. And you say, well, that's follow through. That's not follow through. That's momentum to letting the string go. That's what moves it back. And it's a forced effort. Follow through is always in the direction of the arrow. Follow through is always in this hand. It's in, I don't care what sport you have, it's always in the direction of the object you are moving. That is follow through. This is only momentum of having the hand come back. But every book talks about, oh, this is your follow through. No, it's not. Well, they say it's the follow through to your release. No, it's the pull through. It's momentum carrying it back. Let's get it straight. Let's really look at it and study it and think a little bit different. That's what this is all about. And you don't have to follow my thinking, for heaven's sakes, but that's what works. Okay, now I'm going to get it back and I'm going to let it relax a little bit. You can see how it just turned the arrow, even brought the arrow into alignment. It brought the string into alignment just by letting it relax out there. No, there's automatic alignment, guys. Now when that comes back into here, it hangs. Now it's a true hook. Now there's no action in the hand whatsoever. It's all off of the shoulder girdle. All the muscle pulling back and setting the anchor point with the scapula. Now it's going to bring back. There's my scapula. Now I'm going to anchor the scapula. There I've anchored it. There now the scapula is anchored. Now the fingers are out here. Now it's ready to release. And there's the release. And then you don't see this. Now I've only got 6 pounds. So the momentum is very, very slight. Very slight. Do I think of release? No. I felt back in my anchor. I'm going to release the anchor. So how am I going to release the anchor? By letting the fingers relax. But my anchor is back there. That's my anchor. Not up in any place else. That's it. This is an aiming reference. That's all it is. Think of it that way and keep thinking that way, because that's a variable. You can set that wherever you want, and you can anchor the shot. You can even move that while you're anchored, and nothing happens. Now it's a variable, but you're setting the distance, your rear sight. That's how it works. Again, the 2 releases. This is a release where you do pretty much keep. Oh, by the way, you see so many people go with a spacer in between. If you're going to use a spacer to prevent yourself from getting that rub on the knot, you have to have one that's very, very thick, because the finger automatically, the end of this finger wants to point down. Therefore, you can see how wide that has to be in order to get any separation in those 2 fingers, how wide that gap has to be. So that's why you want a real wide, if you're going to use one, you want a wide one. So you really eliminate that pressure on that knock. But I do it simply by adjusting the weight. I don't like them. That's just a nuisance to me. I want to do it by letting this finger open up to adjust to the angle, to adjust to the weight. Now and when I do that, that's where I can just feel the alignment come on when I do it. I just feel it. And also it transfers the weight into the anchoring of the scapula. The scapula is a free floating bone, so we must control it. And we control it by the muscles that are attached to it. And that which sets the scapula. That's all that archery is all about. And it automatic, the other one, it's not pinch. You don't pinch to get off. No, this one here is back there, and you tighten that one, and as you tighten that one, this one goes forward. It works together. That's the way we are built. And that's what you make use of. You learn these things and you make use of the way we are automatically programmed. Oh, but I just thought of this one. I had that thought. You know, when our Creator designed us, He must have loved archery, because He decided that, by golly, if He had a bow, He could use that for gathering game, getting food. He'd be more efficient. But then He needs a hook. He needs a good hook. So He designs that old hand. So boy, it works. It pulls that cord back and so forth. So man, He did a great, great job. We've been able to turn that into even winning gold medals with that hook. Well, Lucifer was pretty jealous. He didn't know about this. He couldn't how to compete with that. So what did he do? He invented the damn hook, the release, and a compound. Well, I decided in '96, I'm not old enough yet that I need Lucifer's help. I'm still going to stay with those fingers in that bowl. My sense of humor. Now, anyway, here we are again, back into that release. Let it relax. Get your mojo. Let it settle down. Get your shoulders. Set your shoulders with your balance, with your posture. Your posture sets those scapulas. Once the scapulars are set, then leave them set there. Leave them, make all your motions in there, move anything you're going to do, make them match your stance. Make them match that. And there it is. All right, now, I think I pretty much covered everything that I'm supposed to. So let's go to work and do some explaining about selecting your arrows. And what did I do with that? You saw a tab someplace?
Yeah, on this side of the podium here, on the table.
Okay, thank you. All right, let's go over. This is about 43 pounds at my draw. And what I've got here now is I've got arrows that are, let's see, get the right ones here. Oh, goodness, I messed things up, didn't I? There's 4, there should be one more. I'm missing a length in there. Let's see, this should be the red feather.
Did you shoot it?
Oh, I got down there to the target. No wonder I can't find him. Clear. Clear, yeah, clear. Oh, goodness, excuse me, I got a little bit of allergy this morning or something here. Okay. Now I guess I've got the missing one. This must be it. Now here, these here have been cut, so they start with 26 inches of length out to 31. And that would be in a test kit. You can get these, Easton puts these test kits out, and then you have to come with 34 inches. And just in case that you do work with, I've got Three Rivers catalogs here. Take one if you'd like one, by all means. And if you do give them a call, just tell them you attended a seminar up here where you got your catalog. I'd appreciate it, and so forth, because they asked them to send it for me, and I wanted them to know that I reciprocated. I tried to help them a little too. They gave me $13 off after all. That's pretty good. All right, let's get serious here for a minute. Now, these are going to be arrows, and I'm not going to shoot at the target because I want you to be able to see the arrows without any problem. And these will be, I'm shooting different lengths. And And now, of course, I'm at this close distance. So gravity is not much of a factor on the arrow at this distance. So let's see what happens. All right, there's one length. Try a different length. And that, you can see that arrow looks like it went in a little bit on the stiff side.
Jim, will you do me a quick favor? Just put that audio piece back in your pocket. It's just dangling, buddy.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, so it get tangled up in the string. Oh, these are all different lengths. So how much, oh, this is a bear shaft. I'll show you that though too in a second. So I'm just trying to show that there really isn't a hell of a lot of difference in length, is there, huh? Not as the way they come out of the bow. They're all grouping pretty well there in the center. They aren't moving around and so forth. Very, very little. So a lot of this stuff you're reading, so you got to take it with a grain of salt. So much of it. Take the smoke out of it. Now we'll shoot a bare shaft in there with that mess and see what happens. Stayed with them. So that one here happened to pretty much match what I want. But there, you can see there, I'm not getting, I'm in close, but the way the arrows are going in, they're all going in. There's a couple of them there that straightened out slightly, and that's the ones that I would want to select out of that bunch for the likes of my bow. And that helps you a little bit. So if you have a set like that, that's what you can gain from playing with it. So if you want to do the busy work, you can do it. Dave, you were supposed to be up to ponies in this for you. Did you know that?
A little deeper than the 6,000.
Yeah. And now, oh, I got some other stuff here I have to tell you. Now we're going to shoot some with different weight. And we'll start out with 100 grain. And when you are doing this stuff, guys, always do it from some set distance. Paper tuning, I'm not excited about it, because if your arrow does have motion in it, all you have to do is walk a little forward or a little back, and at one point it's going to go through the paper straight. And if you're going to just tune to one distance, well, that's a lot of busy work trying to find that. But is it going to mean anything? No, because the fletching will take care of your problems anyway. So I'm not excited about that. Same with the bear shaft. Yes, I like it a little bit to find a tunable arrow, and that's about it. The rest of it, you can see that when I concentrated and got my focus down there and got my balance between the two halves, they go there. They go there. All right. Now, again, get my breath, get my mojo down there, look at my spot I want to hit, or bring this arrow up, get this hand, get this tight bicep turned around, come back in there, anchor my scapula, and let it go. Now, I've not talked anything about gold fever, not one bit, because I don't believe in it. If you use this system, there isn't, because all you're doing is looking at the spot to hit. You're not trying to hold your sight pin, because as soon as you go to holding your sight pin, all of a sudden you can't move the darn thing, because that becomes your release. You release by feel, not by sight. You release by feel. And when you're working that, there is no panic, there is no gold fever. So in the manual, anything else, there's nothing to say about that, because you eliminate it automatically, because you got control over your situation. I will mention there is one aspect, the jerk principle, that's going to occur. That is, when you get up here, you get this action. When the muscles have their own natural protection system, it's this action. If this is hot, what happens if my finger jumps back automatically? I don't have to think about it. That little sensation was there. That signal only goes to the spine. It does not go to the brain, and that is enough signal to get the reaction. It's a protection that we have. In the muscles itself, when you're drawing back and getting the tension, there is a little buildup of electric shock that will, at times, go to work and come back in and get that jerk principle. That's a reaction in the muscles, so not much we can do about it. That's not panic, it's not gold fever, it's a natural reaction to the muscles, how they function. And that's what happens, get that jerk. I've seen old Bob Brody, he would get back in there, and then it would settle down. He'd get about 3 of them. That would happen. Just kind of laugh, but it wasn't funny. But we would laugh at it. Anyway, now, this is another weight. I was aiming that one. Not concentrating, I was aiming. But there's difference in weight. And here, we're not getting the effects of direct gravity. I'm going now, I'm up to about 170, 150. And that's not good. Let's get my mojo working here. There, that one there had mojo, had a look into it, had the feel that I want, the right feel. And when the right feel is there, they go there. If the feel isn't there, they don't go there. And there's no amount of aiming that's going to correct it. You've got to come to that feel. You get that feel that's there. There. That was a decent shot. But you can see also weight really doesn't make that much difference. It will out of distance. But at least it helps blow the smoke away a little bit, guys, so you can get some conscious thought of how things really work. And, oh, here's something else that I didn't mention, is on, I don't have a board here. I did have one someplace to show it, but I think I can explain it without it. Finding when manufacturers, is there a little board laying in that stuff piled up over there, a little flat board? Way over by the, no, not, it's over in amongst that blue stuff, there's some kind of board. Yeah, that'll work. This one here, I think that will fit. Let me see. Will it fit? Yeah. Okay. And let me get this down here. Now, in order to find the true bending center, when that limb comes off of the press, just because something is 2 inches wide does not mean that 1 inch is the true bending center. It just means that's a measurement center to find the center of that piece. That's all it means. And so when the manufacturers are putting out limbs nowadays, because of the IFL system, they're using that core tough material that they figure takes out the torque of the limb. They're talking about that. It takes out torque by having it. And it may work to a degree, I'm sure it does. And their manufacturers, they don't take time to align that limb. They can't. They're producing these limbs in a row, so they would just find a center and sort of put it out. And they rely on the fact that you have adjustment here to straighten the limb off to find the true bending center of the limb. Hoyt and Wing down there, I don't know which, if it was Earl or if it was somebody at Wing, came up with this concept, I don't know. When I designed these things and started out, I was under the impression at the time that center is the center, 2 inches, 1 inch is the center. So I had Buddy cut the bulbs that way. He said, "Oh, Jim, I think we should use the blocks." "What block?" "The lighting block." "Well, I don't know about that, buddy." Anyway, sent the bow out, went out to California, came back, says the limbs are twisted. Well, it didn't align after a while. So I said, "Well, buddy, what about those blocks you mentioned?" And so I said, "Okay." So what it is, you put one of these design. This one is over designed. It's over heavy. You don't need that much weight to it and all that sort of stuff. But you put it on there and you bring the bow up to a brace height. And then we used to use about 3 different positions to check that out. And we put it on there, and then we'd take this and turn this like this. And what that does, this moves in back and forth across this unit. And now you find out where the limb gives this. Otherwise the limb's twisted a little bit, and you keep moving it until the limb is straight. Now you've got found the true center, and it does that by moving this back and forth on the end of that limb. If you move this back and forth, it twists that like this and turn it, then you find the true bending center. That's what aligns that for you. So that really works well. And after we start using that and do that for the 10 years that I had the company, not one bow, not one, ever came back and said the limbs were not in line. And they wanted to know how come the bow shot so much about where they were looking. I've got letters that are testing, and so they bragged about, oh man, this bow just shoots right where I'm looking. Why? Every bow that left that shop was aligned so that the string was aligned with the center of where the arrow would sit on that crest. That was the secret, our secret, if you want to call it a secret. It was simply complying to the laws of motion, so that way when the archer held it in any kind of alignment, he was pushing on the center of mass, and that arrow left the string at that right angle with a lot of distortion in it. That's why they pointed where they were looking, and why it worked. And that was true. It loved it. I mean, that was just a great. So it's a great tool. You've many different ways of accomplishing. You can buy blocks if you are doing building and so on the bows, but that's what you're looking for. And that's why you have to realign the IFL. And different risers for different manufacturers are going to align a little bit differently. And you'll find all that out with the system we did here, with using the levels and so forth to get those limbs aligned with the center of the riser, not with the limbs, people, the center of the riser. There's a nice story about, me and my names are terrible. He used to work for Earl Hoyt, and Earl and Hoyt, and by the way, myself were really great friends. We thought a lot alike and so on and everything else, and we enjoyed each other, our company, and a whole bit. In fact, I almost went to work for him, but that's another story. But anyway, I lost my train of thought here too, rather way naturally, and getting my brain is muddled here this morning. Get back on track. I lost it. My mojo, I lost it. What I wanted to tell you. And it'll come back in a minute or two, but we'll just go on from there. It was something, on that alignment, in doing that, we had that set up at three different positions, and then we aligned that limb so that it would, on each end would do that and cross through the center of that riser. So that was the whole deal. And Hoyt used it, I know for sure. But who came, like I say, I don't know which one was Hoyt or Wing that we developed. I don't know that. But it's a great tool for that. All right, that covers that. And what else did I forget? I've got these feathers laying over here. If you people are doing your own fletching and so forth, one little trick, I've got the feathers laid out here on this old towel here. But what you want to do is get them, actually you want to wet this towel. Get it soaked out really good. And just wring it out pretty good. And then lay your feathers on there and fold them in and just let them sit for 15, 20 minutes. And that'll soften those quills up real nicely. And then when you put them on, you're so much easier to fletch. Get your glue on them, put them on, and they'll keep their alignment so much better. So it's a little trick you can use at home when you're doing your own fletching. You'll feel how nicely, because right now they're curled. How they're curled, when you do that, they'll lay there nice and straight when you get them wet. So that's why I just brought it like that, just to show you what it takes. Just any old little towel, get it good and wet, leave them set for 15 minutes or so, and then start your gluing. And funny enough, the glue will stick because that quill is, you just wipe it a little bit on something and it'll dry it. And when you do put your points in though, I like to use the hot melt because I can change things out more. I don't like a permanent thing. I like to be able to have it and I want to make changes. But be sure to wipe the inside of that with a little swab. Those little cotton ends of those little, what the hell is it?
Q-tip.
Huh?
Q-tip.
Q-tips. No, there you got it. There you got me straight. Q-tips. Wet, just water is enough. Just wipe that in and out. It'll turn black as heck. And also, don't be afraid to tap the arrow a little bit. There's a lot of dirt inside sometimes to get it out of there. And then just be sure it's wet, and that'll help you to hold and stay on so you don't lose that tip in the tough butts that are out there today, targets. So that's another little tip to remember. Other than that, left wing, of course, why we use left wing feathers in the beginning of the situation is years and years ago, they always used to clip the right wing primary feathers on a turkey so they couldn't fly, stay in the pen. So therefore we bought left wing because those weren't trimmed. That's why left wing was so popular in the origin. Nowadays they don't do that anymore, so you can get either one, it works. But the left wing, you can always tell which is left or right by how it fits your hand. If you lay the feather on there, to be sure, this one here is curved like this. When it matches my hand, that's going to be a right wing. That's a right wing feather on that one. The left wing is going to be the other one. If it fits the curve, it's going to be a left wing. So that's how you can tell the difference. These on here are left wing because when you put it up there like that, it fits this way. And they do put a little helical in it. And the helical actually is put on for hardly any offset, just depending upon just the bend of the clamp itself in order to give you direction, the way that works. Distance in here, game player, whatever you happen to think. I do like to keep it fairly close to the back just for steerage. And rather than getting it too far forward unless you need it for clearance. Don't be too fussy about that. So whatever you want to do. And so that should take care of that. Other tips, let's see what else I can think of here quick. Basically we've got that. Remember the two different types of releases, the tight one or the one that relaxes. And you can see here's the tight one. I'm an arm shooter. Now I'm more of a back shooter. You can see the weight transfer in my whole body. You can just see it. You can see it fall back. When I relax, there it is. It goes into an anchor. Now, and that's where my release is releasing the anchor. That causes the fingers to extend off the string without any conscious awareness. You don't think much about your release. It automatically happens. Well, we're doing pretty good on time. We got it pretty much worked in here, even a little bit ahead. I don't know what your schedules are out in the range and all that sort of stuff, but I think that should cover us pretty well and so forth, so then we'll get a break. So I hope you've enjoyed and got something out of it. And so I think with that, we're going to close out.